The old man sat alone beneath the warm morning sunlight on a polished wooden bench outside the grand estate, wearing a faded gray coat that had clearly seen better days. His hands trembled slightly as he held a paper cup of cold tea, and every servant who passed him looked away as though he didn't belong there. Guests walked by without a second glance, security guards whispered behind his back, and even the gardeners assumed he was just another homeless stranger who had wandered too close to luxury. No one knew that behind those tired eyes was a lifetime of sacrifice, heartbreak, and a secret that would soon shake everyone inside the mansion. Sometimes, the richest heart hides beneath the poorest clothes, and the greatest test of character comes when no one is watching. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that every person should be treated with dignity no matter their appearance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness, too. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world humanity still exists. It was a bright spring morning when the enormous Ashford estate prepared for one of the most important celebrations of the year. Luxury cars lined the driveway, expensive flowers decorated every entrance, and workers hurried from one corner of the mansion to another. The estate belonged to the successful businessman Alastair Rowan, a millionaire admired for his sharp business skills and lavish lifestyle. Newspapers praised his achievements, magazines featured his mansion, and influential people competed for invitations to his parties. To everyone watching from the outside, Alastair appeared to have everything money could buy. Yet inside the walls of that magnificent home, there was something missing that no amount of wealth could replace. Far beyond the decorated halls, sitting quietly near the servants' entrance, was an elderly man named Cedric Hale. His silver hair was uncombed, his shoes were worn thin, and his posture reflected years of disappointment rather than age alone. Most people believed he had simply wandered onto the property. No one imagined he had come there with trembling hope, carrying nothing except an old leather wallet containing a faded photograph of a smiling little boy. That boy had grown into Alastair Rowan. Years earlier, Cedric had worked endless days in factories and construction sites after his wife passed away unexpectedly. Every dollar he earned went toward raising his only son. He skipped meals so his child could eat, sold treasured family belongings to pay school fees, and sacrificed every dream he once had. When Alastair received a scholarship and later built an empire through determination and talent, Cedric believed every sacrifice had finally been worth it. But success slowly changed the young man. Business meetings replaced family dinners. Luxury replaced gratitude. Phone calls became shorter until they disappeared completely. Eventually, Cedric found himself living alone in a tiny apartment while his son's face smiled from magazine covers around the country. As the years passed, loneliness settled into Cedric's heart like winter that refused to end. Birthdays came without phone calls. Holidays passed in silence. Letters remained unanswered. Yet despite everything, a father never truly stops hoping. When Cedric learned through television that his son's estate was hosting a charity celebration honoring family values, something stirred inside him. Perhaps today would finally be the day his son remembered where he came from. The security guard saw only an elderly man in shabby clothes and refused to let him enter through the main gate. They directed him toward a bench outside the service entrance, telling him someone might eventually ask what he wanted. Hours passed beneath the growing warmth of the sun. Workers hurried by carrying decorations, trays of food, and expensive gifts, but nobody stopped to ask whether the old man needed water or food. Among the many employees was a young maid named Marisol Quinn. Unlike the others, Marisol noticed small things. She noticed lonely faces, quiet tears, and tired hands. She had grown up caring for her grandmother after losing both parents at an early age, so she understood that elderly people often carried invisible burdens heavier than anyone realized. While polishing silver trays, she looked through the kitchen window and noticed Cedric still sitting alone. Without asking permission, Marisol prepared a fresh breakfast. She carefully arranged warm bread, fruit, eggs, and hot tea on a clean serving tray. She even folded a cloth napkin beside the plate because she believed respect was shown through details. Walking outside, she smiled warmly before placing the tray beside the surprised old man. She treated him with the same courtesy she would have shown the mansion's wealthiest guest. She gently brushed dust from the bench, offered him fresh water, and brought a soft blanket when she noticed the morning breeze making him shiver. To Marisol, kindness was never reserved for those who could repay it. Cedric's tired eyes filled with quiet gratitude. It had been years since someone had looked at him without judgment. Every thoughtful gesture reminded him of the compassion his late wife had once shown strangers. Although his heart remained heavy with sadness over his son, that simple breakfast restored a small piece of faith he thought had disappeared forever. Inside the mansion, preparations continued. Wealthy guests admired crystal chandeliers while photographers captured glamorous arrivals. Speeches celebrated generosity and success. Yet outside, the greatest act of generosity happened unnoticed beneath the open sky. As the afternoon unfolded, Marisol returned several times to check on Cedric. She brought fresh tea, offered sunscreen against the bright sun, and even found a comfortable chair instead of leaving him on the hard bench. She asked gentle questions about his health and listened patiently as he spoke about growing older, missing family, and believing that forgiveness was stronger than resentment. He never mentioned his son's name. He simply smiled sadly whenever family was discussed. Some of the senior staff mocked Marisol behind her back. They questioned why she wasted time on someone who looked poor and unimportant. A supervisor even warned her that guests might complain if they saw an elderly stranger near the property. But Marisol refused to let embarrassment silence compassion. She quietly continued caring for Cedric, believing that every human being deserved dignity. Late that afternoon, an unexpected rainstorm swept across the estate. Guests hurried indoors while servants rushed to protect decorations from the weather. Cedric attempted to stand, but nearly lost his balance. Before anyone else noticed, Marisol ran through the rain carrying a large umbrella. She carefully supported the old man with one arm while shielding him with the other, leading him toward a sheltered garden pavilion. Her own uniform became soaked, yet she never complained. She dried the chair before helping Cedric sit comfortably and returned moments later with a warm bowl of soup prepared from the kitchen. Hidden behind a nearby window, Alistair happened to witness the entire scene. At first, he barely recognized the elderly man because years had changed his father's appearance so dramatically. But when Cedric pulled an old leather wallet from his pocket to protect it from the rain, a familiar family photograph slipped onto the ground. Alistair froze. The image showed himself as a smiling child sitting on his father's shoulders. The world around him seemed to disappear. For years, he had buried painful memories beneath endless meetings, expensive vacations, and business deals. He convinced himself that success justified every sacrifice, including distance from the man who had raised him. Yet watching a humble maid show more compassion to his father in one afternoon than he had shown in years shattered every excuse he had ever created. As the rain slowed, Alistair quietly walked toward the pavilion. His polished shoes stopped only a few feet away. Cedric looked up slowly, disbelief spreading across his weathered face. Neither man spoke. Years of silence weighed heavily between them. The millionaire who commanded thousands of employees suddenly felt smaller than he ever had. Marisol sensed the importance of the moment and stepped back respectfully. She believed they were simply two strangers reconnecting after a long absence. She never imagined she had been serving the millionaire's own father all day. Tears gathered in Alistair's eyes as memories flooded back. He remembered the freezing mornings when his father walked miles so he could ride the only bus to school. He remembered patched clothing, homemade birthday cakes, and bedtime stories told after exhausting work shifts. Every achievement he celebrated had been built upon Cedric's sacrifices, yet he had allowed pride to erase gratitude. Overcome with shame, Alistair gently embraced his father. The old man hesitated only briefly before returning the hug with trembling arms. Years of loneliness melted into silent forgiveness beneath the clearing afternoon sky. No expensive gift could have matched the value of that simple embrace. The celebration inside the mansion suddenly felt meaningless compared to the reunion taking place outside. Guests noticed the emotional scene through the windows, and whispers quickly spread across the estate. Many were shocked to learn the elderly man they had ignored was the father of the millionaire hosting the event. Alistair publicly introduced Cedric before every guest that evening. With a voice shaking from emotion, he admitted that he had allowed ambition to blind him to the greatest blessing in his life. He confessed that while he built companies worth millions, he had nearly lost the man whose love had made every success possible. Then he turned toward Marisol, whose soaked uniform had already dried from the afternoon rain. In front of hundreds of guests, Alistair thanked her for teaching him a lesson no business school, investor, or luxury lifestyle ever could. He explained that true greatness was measured not by wealth, but by how people treated those who could offer nothing in return. He announced that Marisol would receive a leadership position overseeing the estate's community outreach programs, along with financial support to continue her education and care for her grandmother. The audience rose in heartfelt applause, but Marisol remained humble, insisting she had only done what every person should do. From that day forward, Cedric moved into a peaceful cottage on the estate surrounded by gardens where he spent mornings reading beneath the sunshine instead of sitting alone on forgotten benches. Alistair visited him every day regardless of business schedules. Together they planted trees, shared quiet breakfasts, and slowly rebuilt the years that had been stolen by pride and distance. Employees throughout the estate began treating every visitor with greater respect because they had witnessed firsthand how appearances could deceive. Marisol's simple act of kindness transformed far more than one family. It inspired an entire community to look beyond clothing, age, and social status before judging another person. Her compassion became a reminder that the smallest gestures often create the biggest miracles. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with friends and family, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness, too. Your support encourages more stories that celebrate kindness, forgiveness, and hope. Special request: comment below with the words, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe every elderly person deserves love, respect, and compassion. As the sun set over the estate that evening, golden light painted the gardens where a father and son walked side by side, no longer separated by pride or silence. Nearby, Marisol quietly smiled before returning to her work, never seeking recognition for the compassion that had changed so many lives. She had simply chosen kindness when everyone else chose indifference, proving that the greatest royalty is not found in crowns, mansions, or fortunes, but in a heart that sees the value of every human being. And sometimes, the person the world overlooks today is the very one who will remind everyone tomorrow that love, respect, and kindness are treasures far greater than millions.